Kính chào quý vị, rất hân hạnh được giới thiệu với quý vị một sản phẩm rất đặc biệt đã có mặt trên thị trường Việt Nam. Sản phẩm có tên là Timbermake. Sản phẩm Timbermake được sản xuất tại Australia trên 50 năm qua. Sản phẩm đã được bán trên toàn thế giới theo một hệ thống chặt chẽ. Mỗi châu có một nhà phân phối, mỗi nước có một nhà phân phối độc quyền. Vinh hạnh công ty Tín Đồng chúng tôi là nhà phân phối độc quyền tại Việt Nam. Chúng tôi đã phân phối sản phẩm trên thị trường Việt Nam trên 5 năm qua. Hầu hết khách hàng của chúng tôi là các công ty gỗ và một số công ty xây dựng, trang trí nội thất. Mỗi năm chúng tôi đều có tham dự hội chợ triển lãm để quảng bá thương hiệu và chất lượng sản phẩm. Sản phẩm Timbermake của chúng tôi có thể sửa chữa hầu hết tất cả những vật liệu cứng. Hơn nữa nó là một sản phẩm không có độc hại, sản phẩm chiết xuất từ thiên nhiên. Vì vậy, bột chắn chiết Timbermake là bột chắn chiết hệ nước, tên tiếng Anh là water-based putty, hoặc bột chắn chiết tự nhiên organic putty. Chúng tôi có một đội ngũ nhân viên kỹ thuật chuyên nghiệp được đào tạo từ tổng công ty. Vì vậy, xin quý khách an tâm khi sử dụng sản phẩm của chúng tôi. Trong quá trình sử dụng sản phẩm của chúng tôi, nếu quý khách có vấn đề về cách dùng, vui lòng liên hệ cho chúng tôi qua điện thoại hoặc email hoặc fax.
Why is Timbermate a perfect filler to use? User-friendly and eco-friendly. Timbermate's 60 years old Australian-made formula is the only genuine water-based formula in the world. It does not contain any harmful ingredients, volatile organic compounds, lead, mercury, and polychlorinated biphenyl compounds. It is non-flammable, non-acrylic, non-latex, non-solvents, and non-toxic. Superior finishing result. With Timbermate's unique features plus proper usage and application as wood putty, grain filler, edge filler, and hole, knot, and crack filler, Timbermate brings superior finishing result to any wood products, cement boards, plaster boards, particle boards, MDF, fiberglass, plywood, guitar, sports bats, wood veneers, or solid wood floors. Timbermate won't be awarded Best Filler by the National Wood Flooring Association in the US for nothing. With an award-winning product like Timbermate, you are definitely working with a star product known for its superior features and qualities. Timbermate will not crack, shrink, sink, or fall out. It has excellent bonding capabilities. It is heat-proof up to 220 degrees Celsius and freeze-proof up to -70 degrees Celsius. Economical. Timbermate is economical to use. It provides 20 to 30% savings on paint coatings as it has the capacity to close the tiniest open wood grains when used as grain filler. It also lessens the time and motions in total finishing process. Timbermate is easy to sand, so sandpaper lasts longer as Timbermate does not blind sandpaper. Timbermate is a 5-in-1 multi-purpose filler that can be used as wood putty, grain filler, sanding sealer, edge filler, and hole, knot, and crack filler with wider coverage area. Timbermate has indefinite shelf and pot life. Unused filler can be put back to the pail. It can also be reconstituted in case it's wrongly applied. As you learn more about the different ways to use Timbermate and its application through this demo video, let us share with you Timbermate's tagline: "Do it once, do it well. Let he who buys compare." Timbermate comes in 14 timber colors and is compatible with all known types of stains, varnishes, and coatings. Timbermate as wood putty. To demonstrate Timbermate as wood putty, we shall use a wood sample with long canal type of damage. No need to mix Timbermate with water for wood putty applications, as it can be directly applied on the damaged area. In case Timbermate putty becomes so hard, you can add a few drops of warm water to make it spreadable. Sand the long canal using 180 grit to smoothen the surface, then remove sawdust using an air duster prior to Timbermate application. Apply first coat application of Timbermate on the long canal layer by layer using a putty knife. Let the putty dry for 3 to 4 hours and sand with 240 grit sandpaper. Apply second coat of Timbermate and let it dry for 2 to 3 hours. A heat gun, heat lamps, or kiln ovens may be used to speed up drying time. Once dry, sand the surface with 240 grit and remove sawdust and waste using an air duster. Timbermate is easy to sand when fully dried. It will not blind or clog the sandpaper. Once the surface is smooth, it is now ready for staining or coating. Timbermate as grain filler. Timbermate is excellent to use for any wood species such as plywood, MDF and particle board, cement sheet and other boards, veneer, bamboo, and all other types of solid timber. You will save 20 to 30% on paint coatings when you use Timbermate as grain filler, because this filler has the capacity to close the tiniest of open wood grains, which is economical and yields best results. Timbermate can be used in grain filling plywood, laminated solid wood, and laminated veneer. Plywood. It is important to use Timbermate color that matches the shade of wood or the desired stain finish. If no single Timbermate color matches the shade of wood, you can do a mixture of Timbermate colors to achieve the desired shade. For grain filler application on plywood material, suggested mixture of filler and water is 1 kilogram of Timbermate per 300 to 500 ml of water. Coverage area is 10 to 12 square meters per 1 kilogram of Timbermate. Prepare the edges and surface prior to application. Sand the surface with 180 grit and use an air duster to remove sawdust and waste. Apply Timbermate as grain filler using a roller applicator or brush or cloth rolled into a ball. Rub across the grain in a circular motion. Let it dry for 30 to 60 minutes. You can speed up drying time by using a heat gun or any other appropriate heating methods. You have to ensure that filler is well dried before sanding it with 240 grit, as wet filler will clog or blind the sandpaper. After sanding, use air duster to easily remove sawdust and waste on the surface. Once the surface is smooth and clean, you can now apply your choice of stain or coatings. Laminated solid wood. Now, we will show you how to achieve one shade in different species with different shades of solid wood by using Timbermate wood filler. Apply first coat of Timbermate as grain filler using a wide scraper. Follow it up with putty scraper to take out excess filler and put it back into the tub or pail. Unused filler or putty can be put back into its container so there is no waste at all. Let it dry for 30 to 60 minutes. You can speed up drying time by using a heat gun or any type of heat application. Once the surface is smooth and clean, apply the second coat of Timbermate. Use a gravity-type spray gun to achieve even application of Timbermate grain filler in an easy manner. Suggested mixture of putty and water for the second coat is 1 kilogram of Timbermate per 500 to 600 ml of water. Let it dry for 1 to 2 hours. Once fully dried, sand the surface with 240 grit and remove sawdust using an air duster. Once the surface is smooth, it is now ready for staining. Laminated veneer, white ash. By using any dark-colored Timbermate on wood with veneer lamination white ash, the result will have an amazing finishing effect on the wood grain. In this video, we are going to use ebony color. Prepare the surface prior to application. Sand the surface with 180 grit and use an air duster to remove sawdust and waste. Apply Timbermate ebony as grain filler using a cloth rolled into a ball. Rub across the grain in a circular motion. Dry for 30 to 60 minutes. You can speed up drying time by using a heat gun. You have to ensure that putty is well dried before sanding it with 240 grit, as wet putty will clog or blind the sandpaper. After sanding, use an air duster to easily remove sawdust and waste on the surface. Timbermate as edge filler and grain filler. Timbermate application on particle board. To demonstrate Timbermate as edge filler and grain filler, we shall use a particle board sample. It is important to use Timbermate color that matches the shade of wood or the desired stain finish. If no single Timbermate color matches the shade of wood, you can do a mixture of Timbermate colors to achieve the desired shade. In this case, we are using white putty, as white would be the final top coat. For edge filling, you don't need to mix water with Timbermate. You can apply Timbermate directly on the edges. For grain filling of more porous material like MDF and particle board, suggested mixture of putty and water is 1 kilogram of Timbermate per 400 to 500 ml of water to easily cover all wood grains. Coverage area is 10 to 12 square meters per 1 kilogram of Timbermate. Prepare the edges and surface prior to application. Sand the edges with 100 grit and surface with 180 grit and use an air duster to remove sawdust and waste. Apply Timbermate directly on the edges using a putty knife. Then use a wide scraper to apply Timbermate grain filler on the surface. Let the putty dry for 2 to 3 hours. You have to ensure that putty is well dried before sanding it with 240 grit, as wet putty will clog or blind the sandpaper. After sanding, use an air duster to easily remove sawdust and waste on the surface. Once the edges and surface are smooth and clean, second coat of Timbermate can be applied using a gravity-type spray gun. Let it dry properly for 1 to 2 hours. A heat gun may be used to speed up drying time. Once fully dried, sand the surface with 240 grit and remove sawdust and waste by using an air duster. Once the surface is smooth, it is now ready for staining or coating. Timbermate grain filler and edge filler does not swell the boards because it has no solvent, acrylic, and latex content. One of the unique features of Timbermate is that it can be screwed, nailed on, and cut on with a circular saw without cracking and coming off. Doing these applications on other fillers, solvent-based and acrylic-based fillers, would result to cracking. gloss on, but no crack. When screwing, a pilot hole is recommended before proceeding. Screwed, but no crack. When nailing, a pilot hole is recommended before proceeding. Nailed on, but no crack. Timbermate application on flooring. Timbermate is ideal for filling cracks, gaps, and nail holes on floors as it does not shrink, sink, crack, or fall out. It is highly recommended for all floors. This video will demonstrate application of Timbermate as grain filler, hole, gap, and crack filler on flooring. Ensure that wood is stabilized and free of movement. Mix 2 or 3 colors of Timbermate to achieve desired shade of wood. Scrape all dust and waste between boards and surface, as well as knot holes and nail heads. Sand the surface properly using an orbital sander with 80 to 120 grit. Remove sawdust and waste using an air duster. Apply Timbermate first on holes, gaps, and cracks using a putty knife. Then apply Timbermate as grain filler to floor using a wide scraper or a squeegee. Take out excess filler and put back into tub. Once dry, smooth to perfection using an orbital sander with 240 grit sandpaper. You can now apply polyurethane top coat. Timbermate application on coffee table. This video will demonstrate application of Timbermate as grain filler, hole, gap, and crack filler on a bamboo table. The surface and edges are made of fine crushed bamboo, while legs are all solid wood. Prepare the surface and edges prior to application. Properly sand the surface with 180 grit and use an air duster to remove sawdust and waste. For hole, gap, and crack filling applications, no need to mix Timbermate with water as it can be directly applied on the areas. In case Timbermate putty becomes so hard, you can add a few drops of warm water to make it spreadable. Apply Timbermate on nail holes, gaps, and cracks using a putty knife to cover imperfections seen on bamboo table sides and on solid wood legs as well. For grain filling application on bamboo tables, suggested mixture of putty and water is 1 kilogram of Timbermate per 400 to 500 ml of water. Use Timbermate color that matches the desired shade of wood or the desired stain finish. If no single Timbermate color matches the shade of wood, you can do a mixture of Timbermate colors to achieve the desired shade. Apply Timbermate grain filler on bamboo table surface using a wide scraper. Spread the filler diagonally across the grain in each direction and then work on it back and forth with the grain. Let it dry for 1 hour. A heat gun or any other appropriate heating method may be used to speed up drying time. For edge filler application on sides of the bamboo table, apply Timbermate on edges using a plastic scraper. Remove excess filler and put it back into the tub or pail. Dry for 1 to 2 hours. After drying, wipe the surface, sides, and edges with a wet clean cloth to remove excess putty and retain the natural groove of the bamboo. Dry for 1 to 2 hours. Once fully dried, sand the surface with 240 grit and remove sawdust and waste using an air duster. Once the surface is smooth, you can now apply coatings. Timbermate application on door. This video will demonstrate application of Timbermate as grain filler, hole, gap and crack filler on door. Frame is made of solid wood while door panel is made of plywood. Prepare the surface by sanding it with an orbital sander using 80 to 120 grit. Remove sawdust and waste using an air duster. Mix 2 or 3 colors of Timbermate to achieve desired shade of wood. Repair all holes, gaps, and cracks using Timbermate wood filler. Apply Timbermate grain filler to surface in a circular motion using a cloth rolled into a ball. Let it dry for 1 to 2 hours. Then sand with 240 grit sandpaper. Now you can apply your choice of stain or coatings. Timbermate is worth buying due to all of its savings, benefits, and advantages. At the end of the day, Timbermate becomes more economical than all other traditional fillers. Solvents and the so-called water-based alternatives' initial cost is cheaper than epoxy, but surely they don't have all the characteristics and advantages of Timbermate. Earl's All-Purpose Multifill. Earl's All-Purpose Multifill is the perfect filler to fill interior or exterior surfaces such as wood, rotted timber, masonry, plasterboard, cement sheet, concrete, and metal. For exterior use, ensure base material is stable. Earl's All-Purpose Multifill is not a flexible compound and is not suitable as a filler, especially if there is a structural movement. Paint or seal when dry. Earl's All-Purpose Multifill is a less expensive filler with high-quality finish. It is a heavy-bodied filler. It won't crack or shrink and fills any depth. It is ready to use and can be spread easily. Wet the putty knife and the filler will flow easily. It also sands back easily and leaves a smooth finish. It does not blind or clog sandpaper if sanded when dry. Earl's All-Purpose Multifill on black iron metal tube and sheet. Apply gray epoxy primer first on black iron metal prior to Earl's All-Purpose Multifill application. Earl's Multifill is ready to use and can be spread easily. Use a putty knife in applying Earl's Multifill directly on the hole or damage of the metal tube. Wet the filler so that you can shape the filler according to its shape. Dry for 5 to 7 hours, then sand with 240 grit. Earl's Multifill is ready to sand when color fades and does not blind or clog sandpaper. Remember to put epoxy primer first on the black iron metal sheet before applying Earl's Multifill. Apply first coat application of Earl's All-Purpose Multifill. Dry for 4 to 5 hours, then sand with 180 grit. Earl's All-Purpose Multifill can be thinned slightly with warm water. Stir to make a paste. Remember, do not add more than 10% water by weight. Apply second coat application of Earl's All-Purpose Multifill to cover the whole damaged area. Dry for 2 to 3 hours, then sand with 240 grit. Earl's Multi-Fill is compatible with any type of stain or coatings. Once the surface is smooth, you can now apply your choice of stain or coatings. Earl's All-Purpose Multi-Fill on rotted timber or damaged wood. Make sure that wood is stable, as Earl's All-Purpose Multi-Fill is not a flexible compound. Coating will also crack or bubble if the wood is wet and not stable. Properly sand the surface using 180 grit sandpaper. Use an air duster to remove sawdust and waste. Apply first coat application of Earl's All-Purpose Multi-Fill on the damaged area. Dry for 4 hours, then sand with 180 grit. Earl's Multi-Fill can be speed dried with a heat gun or inside the drying room. Different depths and timbers have different drying time. Apply second coat application of Earl's All-Purpose Multi-Fill. Dry for 2 to 3 hours. Then sand with 240 grit. Apply stain coatings. Earl's All-Purpose Multi-Fill is compatible to all known stains and coatings. Oil finish application. Apply Earl's All-Purpose Multi-Fill directly on nail holes and crack. Dry for 1 hour, then sand with 240 grit sandpaper. Remove sawdust and apply oil stain for best results. Earl's All-Purpose Multi-Fill on stone. Properly sand the surface. Apply first coat of Earl's All-Purpose Multi-Fill on the damaged area of the stone tile. Let it dry for 6 to 8 hours. After drying, sand the surface with 180 grit sandpaper, then remove sawdust. Apply second coat of Earl's All-Purpose Multi-Fill. Dry for 3 to 5 hours, then sand again with 240 grit. You can now apply coatings for best result. Earl's All-Purpose Multi-Fill is compatible to all known stains and coatings. Do it once, do it well. Let he who buys compare. Proper storing and cleaning Timbermate and Earl's All-Purpose Multi-Fill. Timbermate has indefinite pot and shelf life. Therefore, no waste. Allow putty to dry out if previously thinned. Do not add water before closing container or leave excess water in pail for a long period of time. Trapped excess water will cause the putty to become contaminated. Jelly and lumps. When you see brown jelly or some color mixture in Timbermate during hot weather, no need to worry. The hot weather causes it. However, it does not affect Timbermate's quality. There are times when the water and powder mixes together and will look like lumps during hot and cold weather. These lumps spread out when you start using the putty. Upon using, mix it like dough with little water. Afterwards, you are now ready to use Timbermate, and rest assured, it will always be on its top quality. Timbermate is temperature sensitive. The warmer the weather or environment, the softer the putty. On cooler days, it will start to dry in the tub. Add some grams of warm water to remoisten or reconstitute or submerge the pail in a tub of hot water to soften. Hands and tools can be cleansed with water, which makes Timbermate very safe to use and requires no additional cost. Solvents and the so-called water-based alternatives require lacquer thinner to clean, which is costly and harmful to workers. Epoxy sticks to fingers, which peels off the skin and is very harmful. Timbermate water-based wood filler and Earl's all-purpose multi-fill. Do it once, do it well. Let he who buys compare.
Kính chào quý vị, tên tôi là Vũ Đình Phi, tôi đại diện cho công ty Đính Nòng tại Việt Nam giới thiệu cái cách sử dụng sản phẩm Timbermate. Quy cách đóng gói của chúng tôi gồm 3 quy cách đóng gói chính. Thứ nhất là thùng 20 kg, thứ hai là một hộp nhỏ 2 kg. Thứ nhất là Timbermate, thứ hai là một lớp sơn phủ bề mặt cho Timbermate, thứ ba là dao chấm chết dùng để chấm chết Timbermate, thứ tư là cọ để dùng quét bề mặt Timbermate. Và đây là những cái sản phẩm của chúng tôi chám được hầu hết những cái vật chất liệu cứng, ví dụ như sắt, chất liệu nhựa, cạnh ván MDF. Bây giờ chúng tôi xin giới thiệu với quý vị cách sử dụng, cách chấm chết như thế nào. Chúng ta mở một bộ Timbermate ra. Trong bộ Timbermate này gồm có 4 sản phẩm: Timbermate, sơn, dao chám và một cây cọ. Và bắt đầu chúng ta mở hộp. Ở trong đây quý vị thấy trong những màu đại diện của Timbermate 14 màu chính. Những màu này rất đơn giản để trộn lại với nhau tùy theo. Và bây giờ tôi sẽ hướng dẫn quý vị cách sử dụng chám sắt trước. Chúng ta lấy Timbermate trong hộp ra. Chúng ta có thể trộn đều, chám những cái vết mà chúng ta cần chám. Đây là sản phẩm chúng ta đã chám, quý vị thấy. Sau khi chúng ta chám xong, chúng ta có thể dùng vải xấp nước lau sơ trên bề mặt. Sau khi chúng ta chám xong, chúng ta để thời gian khoảng từ nửa tiếng đến 1 tiếng rưỡi cho sản phẩm khô. Sau khi sản phẩm đã khô, tiếp tục chúng ta sẽ sử dụng cái cọ quét lên bề mặt, một cái lớp bảo vệ sơn bên ngoài cho sản phẩm. Chúng ta đã hoàn tất cái sản phẩm chám sắt. Xin mời quý vị xem. Đây là sản phẩm chưa sử dụng Timbermate. Và đây là sản phẩm chúng ta đã sử dụng Timbermate. Và bước tiếp theo, chúng ta sử dụng chám trên bề mặt gỗ. Đây là những góc cạnh. Bước đầu tiên, chúng ta sử dụng bột chám chết Timbermate. Chúng ta chám trên bề mặt hoặc là những góc cạnh. Sau khi chúng ta để thời gian từ 30 phút đến 180 phút, khi mà sản phẩm khô, chúng ta dùng giấy nhám chà sơ trên bề mặt. Và khi nào chúng ta cảm thấy bề mặt mà chúng ta cần chà nhám nó phẳng, chúng ta sẽ dùng cọ quét sơn một lớp phủ bề mặt cho Timbermate. Chúng ta đã thấy đây là những cái cạnh góc chúng ta đã chám, và chúng ta đã quét một lớp sơn phủ bề mặt cho Timbermate. Chúng ta đã hoàn thành chám cho gỗ. Đây là sản phẩm chúng ta chưa chám. Và đây là sản phẩm chúng ta đã chám rồi. Cái sản phẩm đã chám trên bề mặt gỗ có thể đóng đinh Khi mà chúng ta đã đóng đinh xong, chúng ta thấy sản phẩm Timbermex không hề bị nứt, không hề có nứt, vì Timbermex có sự đàn hồi co giãn. Và tiếp tục chúng tôi sẽ bắt vít, và chúng ta thấy sau khi bắt vít, Timbermex không có bị nứt. Và bây giờ chúng tôi xin giới thiệu cách sử dụng chám trên bề mặt nhựa. Chúng ta bảo đầu Timbermex. Trong khi dùng cảm thấy Timbermex nó khô, chúng ta có thể cho thêm nước. Chỉ cần thêm một chút xíu nước, Timbermex có thể dễ dàng mềm ra. Chúng ta bắt đầu chám trên bề mặt nhựa. Chúng ta có thể dùng vải ướt, chúng ta lau lên. Lau lên trên bề mặt nhựa. Khi nào mà chúng ta cảm thấy bề mặt nhựa Timbermex, bề mặt Timbermex nó láng, đợi thời gian khô từ 30 phút đến 1 tiếng. Chúng ta thấy Timbermex đã hoàn toàn khô. Chúng ta quét trên bề mặt Timbermex một lớp sơn. Ta đã hoàn tất cái cách chám trên bề mặt nhựa. Tiếp theo, chúng tôi xin giới thiệu với quý vị cách chám trên bề mặt gốm. Trước tiên, chúng ta sử dụng bột chám chết Timbermex. Chúng ta bảo đầu Timbermex. Trong khi dùng cảm thấy Timbermex nó khô, chúng ta có thể cho thêm nước. Chúng ta dùng dao chám lên góc mà chúng ta cần chám. Sau khi cho Timbermex khô, chúng ta bắt đầu chà nhám. Sau khi chà nhám, chúng ta thấy chúng ta đã được cái bề mặt cần sửa. Chúng ta cần quét cho Timbermex một lớp sơn bảo vệ bên ngoài. Dùng cây cọ quét trên bề mặt chúng ta đã sửa. Sau khi chúng ta quét xong là từ 5 giây đến 10 giây, chúng ta đã được một sản phẩm hoàn thiện. Tiếp theo, tôi xin giới thiệu cách chám trên bề mặt thạch cao. Bước đầu tiên, chúng ta đảo đều bột Timbermex trước khi sử dụng. Sau đó chúng ta có thể chám những vết nứt. Sau khi chúng ta chám xong, để thời gian từ 15 đến 60 phút để cho Timbermex khô. Vì Timbermex là một sản phẩm hữu cơ tự nhiên dùng bằng nước, cho nên Timbermex sẽ lâu khô. Vì vậy trong quá trình thi công cần nhanh khô, chúng ta có thể dùng máy sấy. Chúng ta dùng giấy nhám, chúng ta chà sơ trên bề mặt. Và đây chúng ta đã chà được nhám xong, chúng ta đã có bề mặt rất phẳng. Chúng ta có cái cạnh rất đẹp. Bước tiếp theo, chúng ta cần phủ cho Timbermex một lớp sơn phủ bề mặt bên ngoài. Chúng ta quét trên bề mặt Timbermex, đợi trong vòng khoảng từ 5 đến 10 giây. Lớp phủ bề mặt khô là chúng ta đã hoàn thành cái sản phẩm chúng ta chám thạch cao. Tiếp theo, giới thiệu với quý vị cách sử dụng chám trên bề mặt ngói. Bây giờ chúng ta cần chám để cho cái màu phù hợp với cái màu ngói của chúng ta. Vì vậy chúng ta cần sử dụng cái bột màu tương thích. Ví dụ như đây, ngói chúng ta màu nâu thì chúng ta có thể dùng cái màu chara. Chúng ta lấy Timbermex ra, chúng ta trộn đều trước khi sử dụng. Và bắt đầu chúng ta dùng dao chám lên bề mặt chúng ta cần chám. Vì trên bề mặt ngói chúng ta không cần chà nhám, sử dụng khăn, chấm nước, lau sơ trên bề mặt. Và sau đó chúng ta để thời gian từ 30 phút đến 120 phút cho Timbermex khô tự nhiên. Nhưng thời gian của quý vị không đủ, quý vị cần nhanh khô, chúng ta có thể dùng máy sấy cho Timbermex nhanh khô. Tiếp theo chúng ta dùng cọ quét lên bề mặt. Sau khi quét lên, chúng ta để thời gian từ 5 đến 10 giây là lớp phủ bề mặt đã khô. Và đây chúng ta đã hoàn thành một cái sản phẩm trám gói. Tiếp theo tôi xin giới thiệu với quý vị cách sử dụng trám Timbermex cho ván răm hoặc là ván ô can. Chúng ta lấy Timbermex ra, đảo đều trước khi sử dụng. Và bây giờ chúng ta bắt đầu trám trên cạnh ván. Chúng ta chỉ cần trám một lần duy nhất. Sau khi trám xong, chúng ta để thời gian từ 20 phút đến 45 phút cho Timbermex khô. Sau khi Timbermex đã khô, chúng ta dùng giấy nhám chúng ta chà. Chúng ta chỉ cần dùng loại giấy nhám từ 240 đến 320. Chúng ta chà khi nào chúng ta cảm thấy cái bề mặt Timbermex nó phẳng. Và bước tiếp theo, chúng ta cần quét cho Timbermex trên bề mặt một lớp sơn phủ bề mặt. Chúng ta dùng cọ quét trên bề mặt Timbermex chúng ta đã trám. Thời gian để sơn khô là từ 5 đến 10 giây. Và bây giờ chúng ta đã hoàn tất trám trên cạnh ván ô can hoặc là ván răm. Bước tiếp theo, chúng tôi xin giới thiệu cách xử lý những cái sản phẩm đã hoàn thiện rồi. Ví dụ như cái ghế, chúng ta đã hoàn thiện sơn. Đây là cái cạnh mẻ của cái ghế chúng ta cần xử lý. Trước tiên chúng ta cần sử dụng Timbermex màu của cái ghế. Để chúng ta chọn màu như thế nào phù hợp cho cái ghế của chúng ta là màu vàng. Vì vậy trong cái bảng 14 màu đây, màu phai là màu phù hợp cho cái ghế. Chúng ta lấy Timbermex ra và chúng ta đảo đều. Chúng ta trám lên cái bề mặt góc cần trám. Trong quá trình chúng ta sử dụng Timbermex, chúng ta cần nhanh khô. Chúng ta có thể dùng máy sấy cho Timbermex cho nhanh khô. Dùng giấy nhám 320 hoặc là 240 chúng ta chà sơ. Tiếp theo chúng ta cần quét cho Timbermex một lớp sơn bảo vệ bên ngoài. Chúng ta dùng cọ quét để khoảng từ 5 đến 10 giây. Lớp sơn phủ bề mặt bên ngoài của Timbermex đã khô và chúng ta có thể sử dụng sản phẩm. Xin mời quý vị xem, đây là cái vết nứt của bức tường trong quá trình mình sử dụng bị chấn động. Tiếp theo tôi sẽ hướng dẫn quý vị cách trám cái bờ tường nứt trong gia đình của chúng ta. Trước tiên chúng ta dùng Timbermex và chúng ta nên đảo đều trước khi sử dụng. Chúng ta bắt đầu trám trên những vết nứt mà chúng ta cần trám. Sau khi chúng ta đã trám, nếu quý vị không có thời gian, chúng ta có thể dùng máy sấy. Chúng ta có thể dùng máy sấy để Timbermex sẽ nhanh khô hơn. Sau khi đã trám khô, chúng ta dùng giấy nhám 320 hoặc là 240 chúng ta chà trên bề mặt chúng ta đã trám. Bước tiếp theo, chúng ta dùng một lớp sơn bảo vệ cho Timbermex. Chúng ta cần quét cho Timbermex một lớp sơn phủ bề mặt. Sau khi chúng ta đã quét xong một lớp sơn bảo vệ bên ngoài cho Timbermex, chúng ta cần thời gian từ 5 đến 10 giây. Lớp sơn bảo vệ đã khô. Để kiểm tra chất lượng Timbermex, trên tay tôi là một cái đinh và một cái búa. Bây giờ tôi sẽ đóng thử cái vết nứt mà chúng ta đã trám. Chúng ta kiểm tra xem chất lượng Timbermex như thế nào. Và quý vị thấy khi mà chúng ta đã đóng đinh xong, không hề có vết nứt. Và bây giờ tôi xin giới thiệu cách sử dụng Timbermex pha với nước để lấp tim gỗ hoặc là đánh bóng bề mặt gỗ. Trước tiên ta sử dụng cái sản phẩm Timbermex. Sau khi đã trộn đều Timbermex với nước, chúng ta đã thấy, và đây đã là filler. Chúng ta có thể dùng bút xốp hoặc vải để lau trên bề mặt vòng tròn theo kim đồng hồ trên bề mặt. Chúng ta cần lau vòng tròn trên bề mặt theo chiều kim đồng hồ. Chúng ta có thể phun lên bề mặt ván MDF. Chúng ta phun đều trên bề mặt. Chúng ta phun đều trên bề mặt ván MDF. Sau khi chúng ta đã dùng vải lau trên bề mặt, chúng ta đợi thời gian khoảng từ 15 đến 20 phút để cho cái Timbermake khô, và chúng ta dùng giấy nhám chúng ta chà nhám. Tiếp theo chúng ta dùng giấy nhám 240 hoặc là 320, chúng ta chà nhám trên bề mặt. Chà phẳng bề mặt, chúng ta thấy phần Timbermake rớt lại trên bề mặt. Bột Timbermake sau khi mà chúng ta chà nhám nó rớt lại, chúng ta có thể tái sử dụng. Và chúng ta dùng cái bột sau khi chúng ta chà nhám, chúng ta đổ lại vô hồ, chúng ta tái sử dụng lại được. Sau khi chúng ta đã chà nhám xong, chúng ta có thể phun sơn lên trực tiếp trên bề mặt. Và bên này, một mặt bên này chúng tôi đã sử dụng Timbermake và một lớp sơn lót. Và một mặt bên này chúng tôi chưa có sử dụng. Và sự khác biệt giữa hai bên rất lớn. Vì vậy, khi mà sử dụng Timbermake, chúng ta đã chám từ 80 đến 95% những cái tôm gỗ, những cái tim gỗ, hoặc là như ván MDF thì là đánh bóng bề mặt gỗ. Vì vậy, khi mà chúng ta sử dụng Timbermake, chúng ta sẽ có một cái sản phẩm đẹp. Chúng ta sẽ giảm được sơn và giảm được giá thành cho quý công ty, của quý vị. Vừa qua, chúng tôi đã giới thiệu cho quý vị cách sử dụng bột trắng thép đa năng Timbermake của chúng tôi. Sử dụng Timbermake có thể đạt được từ 80 đến 95% hiệu quả quý vị cần sửa chữa. Hơn nữa, nó rất đơn giản để sử dụng. Đơn giản đến những người giúp việc trong gia đình, những em học sinh trung học, những người lớn tuổi trong gia đình có thể rất dễ dàng sử dụng cái sản phẩm Timbermake của chúng tôi. Ngôi nhà của quý vị, đồ dùng trong nhà của quý vị là bảo bối của quý vị. Khi mà quý vị nhìn thấy nó bị nứt hoặc nó bị hư hỏng mà quý vị muốn sửa chữa, quý vị cần phải tìm thợ bên ngoài vào. Thứ nhất là mất thời gian, thứ hai là chi phí giá thành cao. Vì vậy, có thể dùng một cái sản phẩm Timbermake có thể chám sửa toàn bộ chất liệu cứng như sắt, ngói, nhựa, gỗ, vạc, sứ và một số chất liệu cứng khác. Ngoài ra, cái sản phẩm Timbermake đối với gia đình, quý vị có thể giảm thời gian và giảm được cái giá thành. Quý vị dùng Timbermake, quý vị có thể làm một người kỹ thuật trong gia đình. Đối với công ty, quý vị dùng sản phẩm Timbermake, quý vị sẽ giảm được giá thành, nâng cao chất lượng sản phẩm. Vì vậy, Timbermake của chúng tôi, quý khách sử dụng, càng dùng càng tốt. Chân thành cảm ơn quý khách đã bớt chút thời gian để xem cái chương trình giới thiệu về sản phẩm của chúng tôi. Hy vọng sản phẩm Timbermake sẽ giúp quý vị sử dụng một cách đơn giản và tiện lợi.
Presenting Timbermate, the All-Australian water-based wood filler. But Timbermate is not just a wood filler. It's also a wood putty, an edge filler, a crack filler, a grain filler, and a sanding sealer, all in one product. But why is Timbermate different from ordinary wood fillers? Here are just a few of the reasons. Timbermate will not shrink, sink, crack, or fall out. Do it once, do it well. Timbermate has indefinite shelf and pot life. It is usable to the last drop without waste. Timbermate is water-based, so it can be thinned simply by adding water. You can match or complement any timber with a range of Timbermate colours. This is how simple Timbermate is to use. Is Timbermate tough? Well, just watch this. Once Timbermate is dry, you can nail into it, saw through it, drill through it, or screw into it. As we said earlier, Timbermate is completely workable and exhibits remarkable strength. First, we will nail into it. Timbermate takes the nail firmly, but notice it doesn't split. Even very open grain plywood like this is effectively filled using Timbermate. Mixing is easy. Simply add water and stir until you achieve a pourable consistency. Timbermate is easily applied with a rag or a spatula. And it won't hide or obliterate the grain like other sealers. Timbermate allows the natural beauty of the timber to shine through. For larger jobs, Timbermate can even be sprayed on if required. Timbermate fills the grain and imperfections on all species of timber, chipboard and melamine. Timbermate dries in about 30 minutes. However, a hot air gun can be used to speed up the operation. Now just a light sand by hand, and notice it doesn't clog the paper, or you can use a mechanical sander. And after dusting off, your project is ready for coating. Don't forget to collect and reuse the dust. There's no waste with Timbermate. Filling gaps and grain in flooring is just as easy. Again, make it into a pourable consistency and apply using a squeegee or a trowel. For edge filling any species of timber, particle board or melamine, Timbermate is ideal. Just apply Timbermate to the edge using a putty knife or a spatula. As can be seen, it spreads easily. Any excess on the spatula, project or work surface is put straight back in the tub. There is no waste. If Timbermate becomes too dry, just add water and mix. With this piece of white melamine, the obvious choice is Timbermate White. And the application is just as quick and easy. Timbermate has excellent bonding capabilities. Then allow the Timbermate to dry naturally, or by forced air drying. When it is dry, sand the surface smooth by hand or machine without pulling the filler out or clogging the paper. Timbermate creates a strong, smooth surface. Remember, don't waste the dust, reuse it. Your project is now ready for paint, stain or varnish. In this case, we are using a clear lacquer. For the perfect finish each time, we've already said that because of Timbermate's unique formula, you can change the colour of Timbermate with any known colouring agent, be it water-based, oil-based or spirit-based. Well, now we're going to prove it. Let's begin with Timbermate Natural and a spirit-based stain. Notice how easily the stain combines with the Timbermate. And without streaks or blotches of any kind. Now, again, using Timbermate Natural, we'll use oil-based stain as the colorant. Just as easy, just as effective. This time we are using a water-based food dye. Or, how about curry powder? You don't need to purchase special stains. Could anything be easier or safer? But you don't have to use unusual colouring agents. If the standard Timbermate colour is not quite what you need, simply combine 2 or more Timbermate colours to achieve the exact colour you require. Most colours can be used together. In this example, we have combined Jarrah and Natural. And how about this for the ultimate test? We combine all of the examples together. Curry powder, water-based food dye, spirit stain and oil stain. The unique Timbermate formula combines the lot into one very effective grain filler. But don't just take our word for it. Try it for yourself. We guarantee it. Remember, Timbermate, do it once, do it well.
Hello and how are you? I'm Errol from Timbermate and thank you very much for your inquiry and your concerns re the filler shrinking and falling out, and also you wanted to know about its burning point, so I'm going to show you a few things which I'm sure will help you in seeing exactly how to use Timbermate. The first thing I want to show you is I have a piece of wood, and what we have done here is we have cut that corner away. As you can see, it's been cut away, there's nothing of it. We've taken our filler and we have filled it. We have obviously filled it with a different color just to show you where we are filling, otherwise you wouldn't see it because you can get an exact color match. So if you look very closely, you can see how deep the fill goes, and if you notice it just does not come out. I'll take my nothing in the world will allow it to crack. You can also go and you can fill, and afterwards you can actually saw through it. If you look very carefully, you'll see there's at least an 8mm thick piece of putty in here. You can fill something else and you can screw into it. You can router it, and you can also use it as an end grain or as an edge. So all out of one tub of putty, that's what you can do. Now your concerns were that it was falling out. Well, If you notice, all that's holding this is one base and one side. Why does it not fall out? It has to be something in the way you're using it. I will go on to show you how to use the filler in a few minutes. I also want to show you a few other things. On this board, I've divided into two pieces. If you notice, there is a gouge out of that. We've taken our filler and we've actually filled those 2 points. If you notice, it is smooth, it does not shrink, it doesn't sink and doesn't crack or doesn't fall out, as I said to you before. You can put a stain over it, and afterwards you can put any kind of, here we put nitrocellulose sealer over it. It doesn't matter what you use, and you can put any kind of top coat. If you look at it and look to the light, you will see it is 100% smooth and perfect. Up at the top, I have not done anything. I have not used any filler, I've done nothing. As you can see, it shows the cracks and shows all the open grain. So looking at it, let's try and get you a nice beautiful picture of it. If you look at it this way here, you'll see the difference between using Timbermate and not using Timbermate. So as far as it falling out, as I say, that's all filler on there, there's no filler there, and as fine as it is, like it is there, it doesn't come out. I want to show you one further feature as well, and we'll look at a floor. Right, here is a timber floor, and all I've done here is just taken a couple of pieces of timber and just screwed them together, and we filled the floor. Okay, now what I've done over here is to show you, there are the grooves. That's the groove that we have not filled, and that's a gap we've left. If you notice from here, we've then used filler, and we've matched the exact colour of the filler. You cannot see the filler, and you can see it is perfectly smooth, as is it there and there and there across the way. So just to show you that no matter how you fill the gap, it doesn't fall out. So really your concerns are, not only is Timbermate a wood putty, it is also an edge filler, end grain filler, sanding sealer and grain filler all in one. Very, very easy to use. Let me show you how easy it is to make a grain filler. Take your putty, take some putty out of the container and put it just into a little container to mix. Don't worry if you take too much putty. If you use too much, let it dry out and we'll put it back in the container afterwards. Put the container and now add some water. The best way is to use warm water or hot water, because by adding the water it will soften the putty very, very much easier. I now take my putty, and as you can see, once I've mixed it all in, it now looks almost like toothpaste. It's very easy to use, and all I do is take a cloth, preferably a cotton cloth, take my grain filler, and what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to grain fill my piece of wood. So there's my piece of wood, there's my grain filler, and over the grain we go. Very easily, just cover the grain, go against the grain, and now leave that to dry. It'll take a few minutes to dry, but you can also take it with a heat gun or warm up the environment and it'll dry very, very quickly. So that's what I get. I now end up, when it dries very, very white. And by the way, whenever you're using it as a grain filler, don't worry about the colour it dries. Grain filler will always dry lighter, but sands it very easily. All we will now do is we'll show you how easy it is to sand. Take the sandpaper, and all we now do is sand. So we sand off our putty, and as you can see from here, how nice and smooth it is after I've sanded it. If you also notice, you'll see all the colours of where the grain filler has filled. I've deliberately used a different colour. If I'm going to stain, always use natural. Natural's got no colour in it, and as you can see, it'll highlight what we've done, and we'll add stain afterwards. But before I sanded it off, when the putty dried, this rough section over here is your sanding sealer. So it is not necessary to go and use a sanding sealer afterwards. So I've sanded it down, and now all I am ready to prepare.
Cracked Timbermate filler. For better application, you can add some water to it, so it's not as thick, and pretty much just apply the paint. After applying patch, let it dry for its very light color, and then ready to sand.
Hi, I'm Barry from Timbermate, and I'm going to show you how to fill the hockey shafts and hockey stick shafts and the baseball bats that you guys make. We're using our Blue Label product, and that's our trial-ready, quick-dry product. Actually, in Asia it's called UV fillers. It dries very quickly under UV lights or under heat. This is the consistency it is when you open the bucket. Very easy to work with, sort of like a thick yogurty like consistency. On the bigger voids, on the hockey stick shafts, there's a void down here, like a tear up. You would use it right out of the bucket like that. Right from. That's done. Now what I'm going to do is make a grain filler out of it as well. I have a second bucket here that I've already emptied into a bigger bucket. So how I did that is by adding water to it. Just warm water or hot water. The warmer the water, the better. I've already added 4 of these cups to a gallon. And I have a very watery consistency. I have a baseball bat. It's got an open grain. Looks like hickory. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dip the bat in it. Now, if you were going to do it, you could do it in a trough. It leaves a thin coating on it. And squeeze you off the rest. Now I'm doing it with my hands. Do it with a rubber squeegee or cloth. You can see the grain underneath the bat. That's the only layer you need. Now I'm going to dry it. Now you would obviously use a heat gun. You could use lights, so you could put it through an oven. Or you could let it dry on its own. Take about 15 minutes. This will just speed up the process. The color I'm using is white oak. We have a maple ash pine as well. It's lighter. But I think white oak's good for this. You can tell it's dry when the color changes slightly lighter than what it was when it was wet. I'm going to sand it lightly. You can use an oil, water-based wax, or spray, or dip. I'm not sure how you guys finish it, but I'll show you how well it takes to finish. It's finished. With a sealed grain. Alright, I'm going to put another coat on here to build some finish, and you can tell where the finish is and where the filler is. And there's grain rays here where there's no filler, and no grain rays where is it? That's completely ready to be finished. There's no sanding in between coats. This is completely smooth, ready to be sold, I guess. I'm not sure whose standards they are, but that's pretty cool. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill these knot holes first. So when you get on a job, you want to make sure that the filler has enough time to dry. You can even start filling before you start cutting, or have somebody cut on one side of the floor, then come back and sand it when it's dry. For some of the deeper knot holes, for instance, this one's all the way through to the subfloor, you're going to need to make sure maybe you can fill it in 2 fillings. So you fill the first half and let it dry, and then fill the second half. I have blackwood filler right here, so I'm going to start filling it there. I'm going to work it into the hole, all the way underneath. If you're comfortable overfilling, it's great. It won't shrink or crack, so you can overfill it slightly. That's fill. If you don't like the black color of a filler, we make 11 colors, so you can have whatever color you want. So from everything from teak, hard pine, to red oak, to Australian cypress, walnut, and of course the ebony. But the unique thing about Timbermate is that we have a filler with no color in it, called tin base. And you can make any color you want. So if you're not happy with the ebony in your floor and you want to make a slightly redder color, and if you don't have a red oak, you can pick up a universal coloring, or we have the mix salts available, which is a universal coloring. It's a water-based coloring. So I'm going to make this a slightly brownish red knot-hole filler. I'll show you how quickly the filler accepts the pigment. It's easy to predict the color because the color you see is the color you get. It's 100% predictable. It'll dry lighter. We'll come right back to that color and finish on. Take any coating you put on anything. Oils, moisture cure, anything, water-based. So I'm using number 3 and number 4 mix salt. the knot hole closer to the red oak knot hole. If you want, you can mix that existing filler with it if you want a little darker. So I'm going to mix a little black timber in there. And I'm going to leave it grained a little bit so you can grain the knot. Leave any knot debris in the knot, because what helps it structurally. If the debris is in there, the filler actually bonds to the debris and holds the knot in place really well, and especially with Australian cypress, it works great. So these knot holes over here will dry about 15-20 minutes depending on the ambient humidity. The big knot hole that I filled here, which is about ½ an inch in diameter all the way down to the sub, will probably need to be overnight. Unless you're doing it in 2 steps where you can do the bottom dry in about 2 hours and then you can put the top on. The filler dries from the top down. So on the deeper folds, the top will dry before the bottom, and then the bottom will take a lot longer to dry. Alright, I'm going to show you from start to finish the consistency of the wood filler and how to get it to where you can trowel it and also spot patch. So we're on a maple floor, northern maple, hard maple. And you open the wood filler, it's pretty thick. So I'm going to look for any big gaps on the wood floor now, and I'm going to fill them right from the bucket. There aren't many. I'm using a plastic spatula because a metal spatula may give you black marks from that wood filler. Carbon steel in the metal spatula reacts with the oxides in the wood filler and turns the wood filler black. It'll sand it right off. It'll freak you out when you see it, but it'll sand right off. Also, when you open the tub, you smell the odor of, it's a smell of antiseptic, the same thing that you find on Band-Aids. It stops it from going mold in the tub, gives it an unlimited shelf life, and allows you to reconstitute it as it's drying out in the tub. I'm going to add a little bit of warm water in here. I'll show you out here. We'll mix the water into it so we can get a nice soupy yogurt-like consistency. I'm making a trowel. Almost there. You want to be able to almost pour it onto the floor. Okay. Now it's trowel ready. Trowel. So across the grain and work it into the wood. Then to win, you want to be able to see the grain through the wood filler. You can go over the areas where it's heavier, the water will reconstitute it and wipe it off the floor. Even if the product dries out on the floor and you have a spot where you want to remove it, you can take it's completely reversible. Until you put the finish on, any finish, you can take a damp cloth and wipe the excess off. Put everything you don't use back in the tub.